preparing on the ground. When ground handling, the choice of equipment is very important, as when flying. The correct shoes, outdoor clothing, gloves and helmet. It is often best to take the same equipment as used when flying. Familiarity with your equipment and the correct way to adjust it is also important. As when flying, the pilot should dress and fit all equipment ready to go before spreading the canopy out and blocking the launch site. Overall, gloves, harness and helmet. Then the canopy can leave its bag. If the wind is strong, then the ears should be left folded in to help prevent it from being blown away. Using the rear risers or brake lines, all line tangles should be sorted out before the pilot connects his harness. Sometimes it's helpful to pull the middle A-lines a little to ensure everything is tangle-free. Harness connection methods. There are two possibilities for connecting the harness to the canopy. Normally the canopy is connected so the pilot flies forwards and then the pilot turns to face the canopy. If you want to turn over your right shoulder to take off, then you should turn to the left when you want to face the canopy, and vice versa. If you want to start over your left side like Mike, then you should turn to face your canopy over the right side. Once you're facing the canopy, sort the risers once again. By gently pulling the A risers, the canopy lines can be sorted and the canopy can be pre-filled ready for a rear inflation launch.
Und bin jetzt bereit für den Rückfallstart.
The other connection method is to hook in facing the canopy. The risers must be crossed prior to connection. But be careful, this method is highly susceptible for making mistakes. The pilot must be very sure of the turnout side. If the turnout side is to the left, as Mike demonstrates here, then you start with the right hand or lower riser. This must be rotated 180 degrees to the left before connection, so that it faces forwards for flying. Then the left-hand riser is to be connected, again turned through 180 degrees, so that it faces forwards when flying.
Dass, wenn ich mich umdrehe, der Traggurt in die richtige Richtung zeigt.
Careful, here there is a big potential for making a mistake. If the pilot wishes to turn out over the right shoulder, then everything must be connected in reverse. It is important to try and automate the direction to which you turn out to prevent launch accidents, and this requires a lot of practice before it becomes instinctive. The greatest danger is turning to the wrong side, which causes the risers to twist and block the brakes. If you wish to turn out over your left shoulder, then the risers must be rotated 180 degrees to the left before connecting, and the left riser must be on top. If you want to turn out to the right, then the risers must be rotated 180 degrees to the right before connecting, and the right riser must be on top. Launch methods. There are two different methods for launching a canopy. To launch in moderate wind, pilots should first leave the brakes clipped to the riser to prevent them getting tangled or let them hang freely.
Damit sie mehr oder weniger nicht im Weg umgehen.
The canopy should then be brought to an ideal starting position. The pilot should be standing at the midpoint of the canopy with the wind directly from behind. With a measured pull on the A risers, the canopy will begin to climb. In strong winds, the canopy will climb faster. During this phase, the rear risers need to be taken in hand. First the D risers and later the C risers, or for the canopies with only 3 sets of risers, just the rear risers. Brakes are not needed. There is also an alternative method for a controlled rear inflation launch.
Diese Methode beinhaltet
It has, however, the disadvantage of taking the brakes in hand, which makes control on the ground more difficult. Here the canopy is spread out. Brakes are crossed and held in hand while the risers remain parallel.
Bremsen über Kreuz und die Tragurten halte ich weiterhin parallel.
When the canopy is launched and the pilot turns out, then the brakes should be held in the correct hands. The disadvantage of holding the brakes in strong winds is that brake control generates a lot of lift in the canopy, which may lead to loss of ground contact before the pilot is ready to launch. The brake method should mainly be used on low wind days. When the wind is stronger, canopy control by using the C and D risers is easier and recommended.
Und die Methode ist hauptsächlich für schwachen Aufwind geeignet. Bei kräftigem Wind ist immer die Methode mit CD-Tragurten zu bevorzugen.
To repeat, the pilot pre-fills the canopy ready to start, checks the C, D risers that they are correct for the desired turnout direction,
Greife die Bremsgriffe über Kreuz
and crosses the brakes so that after turning the left brake is in the left hand and the right brake in the right hand. On the ground, the canopy can be controlled and positioned via the brakes. Once it is launched with the A risers, the pilot should turn out immediately and face forwards for takeoff. Here is a demonstration. The A risers are pulled to inflate the canopy, and during the climb phase, the pilot turns ready to take off. This is a very good method for launching in low wind, with the disadvantage that canopy control is not so good. The most effective control is achieved over the C and D risers. Back to the C-D riser method. To prevent the brakes getting tangled, it's best to clip them to the risers.
Befestige ich die Bremsen am Traggurt.
The canopy is set up ready to launch, and the C-D risers are let go off to inflate the canopy over the A risers. With a short, quick pull, the canopy is launched, and during the climb phase, hands are transferred to the C-D risers. The brakes are left alone until the pilot turns out and wants to take off. This is a strong wind technique and should only be used in these conditions. It has the advantage of excellent canopy control.
Vorteil ist natürlich hier eine optimale Kontrolle des Schirmes.
If the wind is too strong, then the canopy can be lowered back to the ground with a gentle pull on the C-D risers to wait for the next good phase. The most extreme variation of this method is to hold the C-D risers in hand and only use your body to inflate the canopy. An impulse is necessary to make the canopy climb, and this is best accomplished by holding the C-D risers, bending forwards and then releasing while stepping quickly backwards. The canopy begins to climb with the advantage that the C-D risers are already in hand. To repeat, bend forward, release the risers and step back. The canopy climbs and may be controlled over the risers. The rest is easy. Take hold of the brakes, lean forwards and take off.
Körpervorlage, Start, nach vorne.
Turning around. The canopy is ready to launch. A and B lines are tensioned. The wind causes the canopy to build a wall and stay on the ground. The canopy is controlled by using the CD risers. To inflate the canopy, the A risers are given a quick pull, and then the CD risers are taken in hand. Here's a demonstration. A quick pull, the canopy climbs, and the D risers, or CD risers, are held. The C and D risers are used when the wind is quite strong. To turn around, the canopy is first stabilized directly overhead using the CD risers. Control the canopy. Grab the inside brake and turn around quickly. Then grab the outside brake and lean forward. Ready to go. 2 or 3 steps to accelerate, and you're away. To repeat. Stabilize the canopy using the CD risers. Take the inner brake, turn around quickly, take the outer brake, lean forward, 2 or 3 steps, and you're away. Gathering the canopy together, transport. What should you do to gather your canopy together in a strong wind?
Den Schirm zusammenraffen will, da heißt es,
Here you have to be careful. The thin lines can cut like cheese wires when under tension. When gathering up a canopy, you have to ensure that the wind is not so strong as to fill the canopy and tear it out of your hands. If you're holding on to the lines and the canopy gets filled with wind, they can quickly cut through your gloves and injure your hands.
Durchschneidet und meine Hände verletzt. Darum ist unbedingt darauf zu achten.
In strong winds, it is very important to gather the canopy together sideways to the wind to prevent this from happening. When you're carrying the canopy, gather it together as tightly as possible, try and walk with the wind if possible, and try to shield the canopy from the wind with your body.
Oder den Schirm unterstützt, dabei nicht aufzugehen.
Advanced. Weight shifting and kiting. Weight shifting is as important when ground handling as when flying in the air. Through weight shifting, forces are transferred through the harness to the risers and the canopy. As can be seen in this demonstration, rotating your body causes one set of risers to be lengthened and the other to be shortened. As when flying, the forces generated by rotating your body are used to steer and control the canopy when ground handling. Merely by using your body, the canopy can be steered into a curve or balanced when ground handling. If you are facing the canopy and want to make it fly left, then you should turn your body to the left. It's similar to riding a bike. You have to lean into a curve. Here's a demonstration from Mike. If you want to go left, then you have to pull the riser on the inside of the curve a little to bring the canopy over to that side. Then lean into the curve, weight shifting to the inside, and off you go to the left. On the other side, if you want to go to the right, weight shift on the right, use the right brake a little to position the canopy to the right, and off you go back to the right side. This exercise can be extended to more extreme forms. The more you lean the canopy over to one side, the more the lift it generates pulls sideways and increases the force exerted on your body. Weight shift to the left, pull from the left, and off you go. To the other side, weight shift to the right, a little right brake, balance the canopy on the left, and off you go again. The most effective way to perform this exercise and generate pull is to use the brakes. They cause the canopy to generate maximum lift when inducing a curve. Weight shift to the left and steer the canopy down through the wind window. Off you go. The brakes cause the canopy to generate a lot of lift. You have to watch out for that and ensure that the canopy doesn't start going too fast for you to follow. Now for the other side, weight shift to the right, right brake and bring the canopy into the wind window, and you're off. This method can only be used if the wind is not too strong. Otherwise, everything starts going just too fast. It's better to take the rear risers in hand if the wind gets too strong. In strong winds, use the rear risers instead of the brakes. One of the advantages of kiting and sliding a canopy is on a slope with the wind at the right strength and angle. You can use the canopy to pull yourself up the hill almost like a ski lift. To do this, there are two methods. The pilot can steer the canopy from the side into a curve through the wind window and allow it to pull up the slope. Or alternatively, the pilot can face the valley and steer up the slope. It's best to perform this facing backwards or sideways, sliding so to speak, with one end of the canopy almost touching the ground. This is where the canopy exerts maximum sideways pull on the pilot and you can really race up the hill. Once again, heel the canopy over to one side, use the brakes to steer it into the wind window and let it pull you up. It's a mistake to believe that canopy is only in the optimum wind window when it's directly overhead. Through aerobatics or ground handling, it's easy to see that the canopy doesn't really care much about where it is, as long as it has sufficient tension on the lines and it's generating enough lift to maintain this. It doesn't matter if the canopy is diagonally below you like this, or on the other side, like this. As long as the canopy is generating lift, it doesn't matter at what angle it is flying at. The canopy doesn't have to be over us to be stable. As long as it's generating lift and its lines are under tension, it can still be controlled. Flying backwards. It is possible when facing the canopy via weight shifting and using the rear risers to fly backwards. When doing this, exact and controlled steering is also possible, although this feels a little strange when you're used to flying facing in the other direction. It doesn't matter to the canopy in which direction you are facing, as long as the lines remain under tension. It doesn't really make any difference at all if you are controlling the canopy facing forwards or facing backwards. It's important to appreciate that the control of the canopy when facing backwards is achieved through pulling on the C and the D risers and weight shifting. Through rotating your body, the canopy can be controlled. The canopy becomes deformed with a noticeable step in the middle, as when thermaling, and this induces a curve. When flying backwards, steering is performed primarily through weight shifting and secondarily through using the rear risers. In these perfect conditions, Mike demonstrates a couple of jumps. His hands are holding the C and D risers all the time. He is controlling and steering the canopy with his body over the harness, the risers and the lines. And he is using his hands on the rear risers to help. Stalling. When in the air, it is possible to bring the canopy back down to the ground by using the rear risers. You have to be extremely careful when trying this. In particular, small canopies are prone to stalling. Extremely dangerous, as the pilot and canopy hit the ground together. Here a demonstration from Mike. Take off, a gentle pull, too much, and stall. Disturbances. A further interesting exercise when ground handling is to simulate different canopy disturbances which may occur when in the air. For example, maneuvers such as B stalls, big ears, front stalls, and asymmetric collapses can all be trained on the ground. Care is, of course, necessary when a canopy deformation is included. For these exercises, a good open piece of land together with moderate laminar wind is required. The pilot faces the canopy and can fully observe what happens when deformations are induced. If the wind gets really strong when ground handling, the pilot can reduce the canopy area by pulling big ears, as when flying, reduces the amount of lift and drag it generates, and increases the tension somewhat on the remaining lines. This all helps to keep control in strong winds. Pulling big ears is performed as follows. Stabilize the canopy directly overhead by using both brakes. Reach up, grab the outer A-lines and pull them in and steer the canopy through weight shifting. By rotating your body, you can keep the canopy under control. Now the canopy has a reduced area, doesn't pull as much, and is easier to keep under control. Opening the ears is easy. Let go of the A-lines. If necessary, give a gentle pull on the brakes and out they come. Now the canopy has its normal area again. Grab the C, D risers now to control it further. The next exercise is to simulate an asymmetric collapse. It's useful to hold on to the opposing brake right from the beginning. Control the canopy and stabilize it a little off-center to one side. Take an A riser and pull it down rapidly. This deforms the canopy on one side. Observe what happens and let the canopy recover by itself. Almost all current paraglider canopies recover on their own. If not, you can help a little by applying brake on the opposite side. Here Mike induces a big asymmetric collapse. During the recover phase, he supports the canopy a little to help stabilize it again. He's using the brakes to help stabilize it, and now he's controlling it with the rear risers again. Another exercise, B stall. The pilot takes the B risers with both hands and pulls them in. The canopy goes into a B stall. And release. Here we see a front stall. First, take hold of the brakes and then reach up and grab the A risers. A sharp pull down and the canopy collapses. Then use the brakes to stabilize it. This exercise should really only be done in low winds. The forces exerted on the pilot can be surprisingly high and uncontrolled. Specials. This is another way of playing with a canopy, over a car. The wind is now gusting up to 45 kilometers an hour. That means Mike is beginning to have real fun. Here he jumps over the next car. It's a good thing to be able to control the canopy without needing to look at it in these conditions. You need to watch what you're doing with your feet and keep an eye on the terrain. You just have to train yourself not to look, says Mike. To climb up something, Mike uses the brake on the canopy. These help generate the required lift. Utmost care is required. As soon as you leave contact with the ground, the risers will want to untwist and turn around. You must be prepared for this. It is a dangerous game playing with a canopy in strong winds. To control the canopy or bring it back down safely, it's always the best to use the rear risers and not the brakes.
Yeah! Cool. Das macht dann richtig Spaß heute. Und jump!
Don't underestimate the power required to play in these conditions. You have to be fit to cope with them. Similar to aerobatic flying, strength, agility and coordination are what's needed, and this form of ground handling is the perfect place to train these qualities. It's a sort of fitness studio in the fresh air, in pleasant surroundings, in the wind and sunshine.
In einer tollen Umgebung, bei tollem Wind, tollem Licht. Okay, jump!
What's difficult to see when Mike is playing are all the little inputs which are constantly being transmitted to the canopy. Using the risers is a good way to control a canopy. Mike supports this through extensive use of weight shifting and body rotation. The harness is one of the most important factors, the connection element between pilot and canopy, exactly as when in the air. It's really important to steer through your body movements and correct or support these inputs by using the risers and brakes. Ground handling is definitely one of the best training methods with a canopy. There are so many things which can be learned and new ways in which your skills can develop from this form of flying, kiting or however you want to call it. And the great thing about it is that it really is fun. The better you get at it, the more fun it becomes. Don't overestimate your skills though. You're always close to the ground and the wind may be strong. Always wear a helmet, gloves, suitable clothes, and use a harness with protectors. Those are the most important points to note. Have fun with ground handling.
Ein wichtiger Punkt, den man einhalten sollte, dann steht dem Spaß beim Groundhandling nichts mehr im Weg.